every statistical test has assumptions, and if these assumptions are violated, then your results may not be correct. That is, you might reject the null when you should not, or accept the null when you should reject it. Now, in general, the analysis of variance is robust with regards to violations of assumptions. But before we get much further into the ANOVA, let's take a moment to review the assumptions. Technically, there are 4 assumptions, although in the real world, only 3 are generally relevant. And what are those assumptions? Number 1, error values within a cell should not equal 0. This test is the analysis of variance. If there's no variance in the values of the numbers within a cell, you can't do the analysis of variance. Now, this generally doesn't happen to us in the behavioral sciences because animals and people behave. Their values change. Not everyone is exactly the same. So imagine a cell in an analysis of variance where every number is a 7. If that happens to you, you are no longer able to do the analysis of variance, but that generally doesn't happen. So let's go on to number 2. Cell variances roughly the same. Roughly similar, perhaps. Imagine an experiment with 4 different cells, and the standard deviations within those cells are 43 for cell 1, 47 for cell 2, 62 for cell 3, and 175 for cell 4. You're possibly going to be in trouble here because those variances really vary very widely. That's a problem. Okay, number 3, the measurements. Must be independent. That is, the values of the dependent variables for participants in different levels of the independent variable cannot be highly correlated. All right? All observations at levels of the independent variable must be independent. And an example here might be useful. Imagine if I was running an experiment that would compare 2 statistics textbooks, the one we are using now with Andy Field and another textbook, and half the students in the class use book 1 while the other half use book 2. Both groups meet at the same time in the same room with the same professor. You would assume that the students are going to talk back and forth, and so the observations are not independent. And the final assumption of analysis of variance is that the distribution of the dependent variable should be more or less normal, or Gaussian distributed, kind of like that. And if those 4 assumptions are met, you are good to go with analysis of variance.